The C-SPAN networks bring you long-form public affairs programming from the nation's capital and are a public service of your television provider. C-SPAN, created by cable.
I saw you say a couple months ago or so that you'd written 4,000 columns in your life.
At least, yeah.
What is the impact of the column that has people raging about you at this moment?
What, right this instant?
You know, the one...
Oh, yes, about the sexual assaults
I got
on
a
campus.
headline, George Will, colleges become the victims of progressivism.
Yes.
And I think the day we're recording this, the St. Louis Post-Dispatch announced they dropped your column.
Yes, they have. They know how to propitiate the rebel. But this is my job, is when dubious statistics become the basis of dubious and dangerous abandonment of due process, to step in and say, take a deep breath, everybody. What's happened is the administration has said that 1 in 5 women in college experiences sexual assault, and that 12% of sexual assaults are actually reported. If you take that, only 12% of sexual assaults are reported. Take the reporting, extrapolate from that, you don't come to anything like 1 in 5. I mean, the administration's own statistics fall apart. But beyond that, the Office of Civil Rights and the Department of Education has said schools should adjudicate sexual assault charges by a preponderance of evidence, not beyond a reasonable doubt, just a preponderance of evidence. So there are serious due process problems here. And what's going to result is a lot of young men and young women are going to, in this sea of hormones and alcohol that gets into so much trouble on campuses, you're going to have charges of sexual assault. And you're going to have young men disciplined, their lives often permanently and seriously blighted by this. Don't get into medical school, don't get to law school, all the rest, and you're going to have litigation of tremendous expense as young men sue the colleges for damages done to them by abandonment of the rules of due process that we have as a society evolved over many centuries and are now in danger of casually shoving aside.
I have a letter that you know about, of course, you've answered it, from Senator Blumenthal, Feinstein, Casey, and Baldwin. They begin the letter by saying, let's see, your thesis and statistics fly in the face of everything we know about this issue. More egregiously, you trivialize the scourge of sexual assault, putting the phrase in scare quotes and treating this crime as a socially acceptable phenomenon. It is, in fact, a spreading epidemic, and you legitimize the myths that victims and victim advocates have worked tirelessly for decades to combat.
Have you seen my letter that I wrote back to them?
I have it. I mean,
okay, well, what I say in there is, A, I take sexual assault more seriously than I think they do, because I agree that society has correctly said that rape is second only to murder as a serious felony, and therefore, when someone is accused of rape, it should be reported to the criminal justice system that knows how to deal with this, not with jerry-built, improvised campus processes. Second, I think sexual assault somewhat more seriously than the senators do, because I think there's a danger now of defining sexual assault so broadly, so capaciously, that it begins to trivialize the seriousness of it. That when you can have remarks become sexual assault, improper touching, bad, shouldn't be done, but it's not sexual assault. I mean, we begin to blur distinctions that are important to preserve if you believe, as the senators purport to believe, that this is a serious matter.
So did you have any idea that you get the kind of feedback you got from this, and that you had a lot of people calling for your head?
Well, I knew, sure. I mean, the reason I wrote about it is there was a lot of passion involved, and that's what I do. That's what you're supposed to do. Calling for my head, now, look, today, for some reason, and I've got some theories about it, indignation is the default position of certain people in civic discourse. They go from a standing start to fury in about 30 seconds. I think it has something to do with the internet. You know, a wonderful thing. It has lowered, indeed erased the barriers to entry into public discourse. That's a good thing. Unfortunately, the downside of this, and there's a downside in everything, is that among the barriers to entry that have been reduced is you don't have to be able to read, write, or think. You can just come in and shout and call names and carry on. And we have all kinds of interest groups who think they're only going to get attention, and they're probably right, they only will get attention if they are at maximum decibel level. So they shout and say, I don't just disagree with him, fire him, send him to jail, silence him, all that stuff. But it's, you know, these are like summer storms. They dissipate fast.
The Post stuck by you right away. The St. Louis Post-Dispatch drops their column and say, we've been watching him for a lot of years here, and we haven't been paying close enough attention.
So they say.
Why do you think they really dropped it?
I have no idea, but I don't think they've covered themselves with glory.
Over the years, have you had much of this kind of reaction?
No, not really. On some occasions when it gets a lot of people angry with you, but again, that's part of my job. And
you wouldn't take back any of those words that you used in it?
No, no.